It was late in the afternoon. I was sitting in the living room, working on my laptop, while my wife was busy with something in the kitchen. No, you didn't. She's laughing now in that way she does when something's genuinely funny. He actually said that in the meeting? I shift on the couch, my shoulder brushing up against her phone on the side table, where it's plugged in, charging. The screen lights up with a text message, catching my attention. I see the first few words of an incoming message. It's from someone named Marcus Reynolds. I can't stop thinking about last night. The rest is cut off. The phone is right there. All I have to do is pick it up. A little voice inside my head tells me not to, but another part of me which has been growing over the last few months tells me I have to. Ha! I can't believe she said that, Elise says, still laughing in the other room. I mean, she was really out of line, but still. I pick up her phone. I know her password. I've seen her put it in 100 times. 4729. The phone unlocks. I open the text messages and go to the conversation with Marcus Reynolds. The first message that I see is the one that just came in from him. Marcus, I can't stop thinking about last night. The way you looked in that dress. Elise, neither can I. These secret meetings are getting risky, though. Marcus, worth every risk. Dinner again tomorrow, the usual place. Elise, can't wait. I'll wear that thing you like. There are more messages going back for weeks, months. Hey, Nancy, I gotta run. James is probably waiting for his dinner, Elise says. Her voice sounds weird now, or maybe it's mine that does. I put the phone back in the position I found it in, hoping she wouldn't notice I had been looking at it. The screen went black as I did. A minute later, I heard her coming up the stairs. I tried to calm my breathing. My laptop had gone to sleep in front of me. There's my hard-working hubby. She comes around the couch, beaming at me with the same smile. How is it the same? I was thinking we'd try the new Thai place for dinner. I don't feel like cooking. I look up at her, really seeing her. The woman I loved for 8 years, my wife, but distorted. Her blonde hair catching the setting sun, making her look like some sort of perverted angel. Sure, whatever, I say. I'm proud that my voice doesn't shake. She tilted her head at me and said, Are you okay? You're looking a little pale. Just tired. I force myself to lie. Long day at the office. Poor baby. She bends down to kiss my forehead, and I almost flinch. I'm going to take a shower before we order. Work was hectic. I wonder if she means Marcus's office or her own. Of course. She goes upstairs, and soon after that I hear the shower running. I stay on the couch, staring at the wall. Everything looks the same, but it feels different. Like I'm staying in a stranger's house. I take up my phone, scroll through the names of some of my closest friends. What would I even say? How do you talk about something like this? The sun sets. I don't turn on the lights. The darkness feels more appropriate. After a while, I hear Elise humming to herself. It sounds the same as always, but how do I know that she's not putting on a show just for me? I look at the time menu, pretend to read it, try to remember all the times she said she was away for work. How many of them had been a lie? The shower stops. I try to prepare myself for the confrontation. Should I do it now, or should I wait until after dinner? Do I want to get it over with? Or do I want to enjoy one last dinner together before everything falls apart? I hear her open and shut her bedroom drawer. Footsteps. She's coming down soon. The last light of the day disappears. I don't know how long I sit there, but when it's over, I feel exhausted. Elise and I did have dinner, but she didn't say much. She went to bed early, and I didn't stop her. I couldn't bring myself to confront her. I stayed up all night wandering the house, and now, here I am in my study. I can hear the birds chirping outside the window. It's morning again. Another night without sleep. I look down at my desk and see the picture of my wife and I from our wedding day. She's wearing her white dress, and I'm standing behind her with my arms around her waist. I pick up the picture. Man, you look like shit, Dave says from my phone. I called him an hour ago, but I still haven't figured out what to say. Yeah, not really getting much sleep, I answer, flipping over the photo. Is it work? I laughed bitterly. You could say that. There was a long pause. I heard my wife downstairs. She was making coffee and going about our typical morning routine. James, you still there? Yeah. I get up and walk to the window. Dave, how well do you know Marcus Reynolds? Marcus? Your wife's boss? He hesitates. Saw him at your Christmas party last year. Seemed like a charming guy. Why? I grasp the curtain. Just curious. James, what the hell is this? I watch Elise's car pull out of the driveway below. Another early meeting. I need a little help with some Financial records. Business related. Unofficial. I heard him gasp on the other end of the call. That's illegal. I know. I'm sitting at my desk now, looking at the anniversary cards, vacation photos, birthday notes, all the paper evidence of my betrayal. I just need to be sure about one thing. This is so unlike you, Dave says, voice softer. What did you do? I pick up last year's anniversary card. To my soulmate, it reads in Elise's flowing handwriting. Forever yours. She's cheating on me, I confess, with Marcus. Fuck, I hear Dave mutter under his breath. Are you serious? I read the texts, I say. I let the card fall out of my hand. But I need to know more, how far this goes. The bank statements. I pointed to my laptop, which was open to a dozen different articles about Marcus's company. He's been making a lot of big moves lately. Acquisitions, mergers. I didn't need to finish my sentence. You think Elise is talking to him? I clicked on an article about insider trading penalties. I guess I need to know everything. Wait. Dave is flipping through some papers. I might have someone, but James, this is risky. If you're wrong, I'm not wrong, I say, a bit more forcefully than I intended. And if I'm right about the insider trading, I'm not the only one at risk. There's a knock on the door to my study, and I jump in my seat. James, I'm leaving for work now. Remember we have dinner with Liam and Nancy tonight? Yeah, I'll see you there. I listen to her footsteps as she walks away. Hey, I need you to get me out of dinner tonight, I say to Dave. Tell them whatever you want. Why? I opened my desk drawer, pulled out some old files from my forensic accounting days, and said, I'm going to follow her. James. She's going to see him today. At their spot, whatever the fuck that means. The bile is back. I need to see it with my own eyes. And then what? I look at our wedding photo again, which is still face down on my desk. Then I start gathering evidence, the kind that holds up in court. Dave's probably right. You should be careful. I will. But before I go back, I need all the information. The times, the dates, the places. I grab a notebook and start jotting things down. Is there anyone else we can talk to? A friend of hers? Maybe Nancy? I paused. Nancy is too close to things. If she tells Elise... Right, Dave says. I'll call about the records. But James, try not to do anything rash. Yeah, that's not going to happen. I hang up and return to my mounting wall of evidence. The sun had made its way up a little higher in the sky, and I was thinking about what I would say to her. I had to make sure I got to her first. She needed to be caught off guard. I wanted to see the look on her face when I revealed that I knew the truth, that I had figured out her game. I had to make a quick stop first so I could be sure. It took me a few hours, a couple of stops at electronics stores, and a phone call to a former colleague of mine who used to help me with investigations, but I finally found what I was looking for. The store's fluorescent lighting reflected off my wedding band as I stood at the counter. The young employee was busy installing the tracking software. Hey, he says, you know this software is technically illegal, right? You didn't get it from me. I hand him the money. Sold what? He nods with understanding. I guess he knows this is a bit hypocritical of me, using deception to uncover deception. As I walk back to my car, I take out my wife's phone. I stole it from her while she was taking a shower. I'll put it back before she even notices it's gone. She won't even know I installed a spy app on it, just like I didn't know she was cheating on me. Back home, I sneak into the bedroom where my wife is already asleep. I place her phone on the nightstand, plugging it into the charger. James? She mumbles. Getting some water, I respond. Lying is getting easier. The first message didn't come until the next morning. I read it while eating breakfast with Elise, seeing Marcus's name but not reacting. Big meeting today? I ask, even though she told Marcus she'd be working from home. Very important. She kisses me on the cheek, and I can already feel the rash I'll have to scrub off later. Don't wait up. The messages kept coming over the next few days, each one worse than the last. My wife and Marcus were having a full-blown affair, and weren't even hiding it in their texts to each other. But more than that, I saw her texting with Dave, my friend. Dave, I miss you. He doesn't suspect a thing. You're right, he's an idiot. Elise, I know, I can distract him with his work. Same time next week, Dave, my fucking friend. And he was in on it. He was helping her cover it up. That wasn't the worst of it, though. A couple days later, I saw her texting with Liam. Liam, better than Paris. Last night was amazing. Elise, yeah, I wish my husband was as good as you in bed. Liam, we should tell Nancy we're working late more often. She believed it no problem. Just like your husband, Paris. They went to fucking Paris together. That must have been when Nancy and I went there on vacation with them. They were having an affair right in front of us. I was so angry, I felt like I was going to explode. But it got worse. I saw another message from Marcus come in, and this one had to do with work. Marcus: I'll be there at 3 p.m. The merger is on the table. Elise: Good. I'll tell him about it after. He doesn't check the offshore accounts anyway. Not only was she cheating on me with multiple men, she was also involved in shady business dealings with Marcus, who was a lawyer at another firm. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what. I needed to think. Then I heard a knock at my door. Hey, babe? Elise asks. Dave and Sarah want to have us over for dinner Friday. I minimize the screens. I'm working late. You're always working late these days. There's a hint of worry in her voice that used to make me weak. Is everything all right? Yeah, of course. I'm getting better at lying. I heard her walk away and return to my notes. While she had been out, I had begun to write down all of my thoughts, trying to figure out what to do. I had also been tracking her phone and had learned she was meeting up with other men regularly, going to hotels and motels and private clubs, and sometimes Dave's house when Sarah wasn't home. My phone buzzed again, and I saw another message had come in. This time, it was a group chat message with the same people from before. Marcus: Everybody all set for tomorrow? Dave: I'm ready to go. James is too stupid to figure it out. Liam: Nancy thinks I'm working. She doesn't suspect a thing. Elise: And my husband thinks I'm at a charity event. I was fuming with anger now. It was all a big joke to them. They were laughing at me behind my back. They thought I was an idiot. They were all in on it, and I realized they had been for a long time. There was a big conspiracy surrounding me, and I had been too blind to see it. The sound of my wife's car starting up in the driveway brought me back to reality. I watched her pull away through the window, wondering where she was going. My phone buzzed again, and I saw she was on the move. I had been tracking her location, and it was updating, showing she was going somewhere, probably to meet one of her many lovers. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and took out a legal pad. I began to write down everything I knew, making categories for different types of evidence. Corporate espionage, financial fraud, and a pattern of deception were all categories I wrote down. Another message came up on my phone, and I glanced at it. Elise: Miss you all already. Can't wait for tomorrow. James suspects nothing. He still thinks I'm his perfect wife. I added another category to my list: conspiracy. The afternoon came and went, and I spent the entire time writing down everything I knew, all the evidence I could possibly gather. There wasn't enough of it yet, but I knew there would be more. My phone continued to buzz with notifications, and I kept a careful record of each one. Dave: Hey buddy, just calling to see if you're okay. I heard from Elise you left the office early. Call me back when you get a chance. I didn't answer. I didn't want to talk to him. I knew he would try to manipulate me, to make me doubt myself, but I wasn't going to let him. I was going to gather all the evidence I needed, and then I was going to take them all down. Liam: Remember when James gave that speech at our wedding about true friendship? I added that to the evidence file, writing it down in my notebook. There was so much betrayal, so many lies. It was overwhelming. But I had to stay focused. I had to keep gathering evidence. The truth was out there, and I was going to find it. I just needed more time. More evidence, more proof. And then, when I had everything I needed, I would expose them all for what they were. I would bring them to justice. I would make them pay for what they had done to me. But for now, I had to keep my head down. I had to keep gathering evidence. I couldn't let them know I was onto them. Not yet. As the sun began to set, I looked out the window and saw the clouds gathering in the sky. A storm was coming. But I didn't care. I was ready for it. I was ready for anything. I just had to keep gathering evidence, keep writing everything down, keep track of all the lies, all the betrayal. And then, when the time was right, I would strike. I would bring them all down. I would make them pay. But for now, I had to keep quiet. I had to keep gathering evidence. I couldn't let them know I was onto them. Not yet. And so, I kept writing, kept taking notes, kept gathering evidence, and waited for the storm to pass. The storm continued throughout the night, each crack of thunder and flash of lightning mirroring the turmoil inside me. I lay in bed, my mind racing with thoughts of betrayal and revenge. Sleep was elusive, and I spent the early hours of the morning organizing my thoughts and preparing for what lay ahead. As the rain finally subsided, I made my way to the study, grabbing a few law books from the firm to aid in my quest for justice. It was time to take matters into my own hands. The next morning, I sat in my study, looking through a few legal books I'd borrowed from the law firm. I also had my laptop out on the desk in front of me and was in the middle of reading about the division of assets in the state of Connecticut. Elise had already left for work. She said she had another early meeting. I had checked her location on my phone and saw she was at least telling the truth about that. She was at work, or at least at Marcus's office building. I was in the middle of reading something when my phone rang. It was my lawyer. James Anderson, I reply flatly. James, I've gone through the files you forwarded me. This is a lot. I can see the wall of evidence I've gathered, all the text messages and bank statements. I do my homework. Extremely thorough. The business espionage stuff. Is it good? I inquire, grabbing my notepad. With these materials, it's dynamite. The stock manipulation angle, too. Fuck, the SEC would eat this up. I made another note. And what about the personal side of things? Connecticut is a no-fault state, but adultery affects settlements when it comes to using shared funds. The hotel stays, the gifts. All noted, I say, glancing at my financial misconduct folder. Do you realize who you're taking down? It's not just your wife. Reynolds? Miller? Parker? I smile, but it's a sad smile. I do. Just then, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked out the window and saw Nancy's car in the driveway. I gotta go, I say to Richard. Send me over the draft. James, hold on. Once we submit this, there's no undoing it. Are you positive? I am. I hang up, hearing the doorbell ring again. I heard Nancy calling up to me from the stairs. James, I see your car in the driveway. I know you're home. I put my laptop away and tried to act normal. She couldn't know that I was on to her. Be right there, I shout back, putting on my best normal person face. Nancy was standing in my front entrance, looking concerned. She was dressed in workout clothes, looking as if she had just come from the gym. James, thank God. I've been trying to contact you. Work's been keeping me busy. I point to my office. What are you doing here? She hesitated. It's about Elise. She's concerned about you. Is who? She said you've been cold, that you've been working late, that something's wrong. I look at Nancy. Does she realize she's just reciting a script I've already read? Everything okay, Nancy. Just a tough case. Are you sure? 'Cause the past few... How's Liam? I cut her off, studying her facial expression closely. She looks a bit guilty or maybe scared. He's good. Busy with work as well. Lots of late meetings? This time of year, you know how it is. She tries to chuckle, but it comes out wrong. I got up from the wall, offering to make her a cup of coffee. Oh no, I just came to see if you're okay. For me? Or for Elise? Her smile disappears for a moment. What do you mean? I wave my hand to dismiss her concerns. Forget about it. Just tell Elise not to worry. Okay. She starts to move towards the door. Be well, James. After she left, I went back to my study. I had a couple of unread messages on my phone, but I ignored them when I saw that Richard had sent me an email with the divorce papers. I printed them, signed them, and added them to my folder. I got another notification from the GPS. Elise was on her way to Dave's office. I added it to my log. The sun was setting. I took a moment to study the evidence I'd collected. I was filled with anger and resentment as I looked at all the proof of my wife's betrayal. I opened the drawer to my desk and pulled out the wedding album. I flipped through the pages, looking at the photos of Elise and me on our wedding day. It was hard to believe that the woman in those pictures was the same woman who had been lying to me for months. How could she do this to me? How could she throw away everything we had? My phone buzzed. It was a message from Elise. Elise, working late tonight, honey. Don't wait up. I added it to the file. I couldn't do it today. I needed to sleep on it. I needed to make sure I was doing this for the right reasons. I needed to make sure I wasn't just acting out of anger and hurt. Tomorrow, I promised myself I would tell Richard to move forward with the lawsuit. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, replaying everything in my head over and over again. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. I couldn't believe my wife was having an affair with my best friend. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But it wasn't a nightmare. It was real, and I was going to make them pay for it. It was getting late. I looked out the window at the setting sun. The storm had passed, but my anger had not. I was still seething. I was still hurt. I was still betrayed. But I was also determined to take control of my life. I was determined to make things right. I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. I kept tossing and turning, thinking about everything that had happened. I couldn't believe my wife had betrayed me like this. I couldn't believe my best friend had betrayed me like this. I couldn't believe the people I loved the most had hurt me like this. But I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I wasn't going to let them destroy my life. I was going to fight back. I was going to take control. I was going to make things right. I woke up the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose. I was going to do whatever it took to get justice. I was going to do whatever it took to make things right. I took a deep breath and got out of bed. It was a new day, and I was going to make the most of it. I was going to take control of my life. I was going to take control of my destiny. I got dressed and left the house. I didn't have a plan, but I knew I needed to get out of the house and clear my head. I decided to go for a walk in the park. It was a beautiful day, and I needed some fresh air. I needed to clear my head. I needed to think. It was a breezy fall afternoon, and I was sitting on a bench in Riverside Park, waiting for Nancy to come by on her daily jogging route. I had been tracking her with a GPS app, and I had made sure to arrive at this spot just in time to intercept her. I saw her in the distance, running toward me with her earbuds in. She didn't see me yet, but I knew she would soon. I got up and stepped in front of her. She stopped abruptly and looked at me with a mixture of shock and confusion. "James?" She takes out her earbuds, panting a little. "What are you doing here?" "I was hoping we could chat, privately, without the crowd." She looked around at the nearly empty park. "I'm in the middle of my run." "It's important." I nod to the bench. "Just sit." She paused, looking uneasy. "Is this about Elise? 'Cause I told you." "It's about everyone," I tell her, trying to remain calm. "Marcus, Dave, Liam." She goes pale despite her rosy cheeks from working out. "I don't—" "Take a seat, Nancy." She sits down, making sure to leave some distance between us. A man jogs by. "I know everything," I say, picking up my phone. "Every meeting, every hotel, every lie. James, whatever you think is—" "October 12th, the Peninsula Hotel, room 847. I scroll through my notes. "While you were visiting your sister in Boston. At least, that's what Liam told you." She clenched her fists in her lap. "Stop." "September 28th. The charity gala you missed because you were too sick with food poisoning. Also missed by Elise and Liam." "Stop!" she cries. "Please stop." Paris wasn't the first time, but it was definitely the most brazen. A sudden gasp next to me. An awkward pause. "How long have you known?" she asks, finally. "Long enough to have a case." I turn to her. "Corporate espionage, insider trading, cheating on partners." "What do you want from me?" "I want you to help me take them down." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Why would I do that?" "Because I can prove you're not a part of their illegal practices. Protect you from the SEC. I hesitate. "Or I can leave you to fall with them." "You're blackmailing me." "I'm saving you." A child's laughter could be heard from the nearby playground, contrasting sharply with the tone of our conversation. "What do you want from me?" Nancy asks, her voice monotone. I produced a thin file. "I want you to tell some of your friends about these people. Make them suspicious. Elise has been working late hours, and her boss, Marcus, seems to have taken a special interest in her, for instance." "You want me to talk shit about you? I want you to set the stage, so that when the truth comes out, it doesn't sound so crazy." She took the folder with shaking hands. "And Liam? Will get exactly what he deserves." I eased my voice just a bit. "Like all of them." Nancy opened the folder and started reading the first page, then gasped. "These are messages. Are just the beginning. I have much worse. God." She shuts the folder. "How did we end up here?" I didn't respond. "When?" she asks. "Soon. But in order for that to happen, we need people asking the right questions, looking in the right places." "They trust me." Her voice breaks. "Elise, especially." "I know. That's why it has to be you." She looked down at the folder in her lap. "If I do this, you'll protect me from all of this?" "I promise." I get to my feet, wiping the dirt and leaves from my pants leg. "Talk to Barbara at the tennis club first. She's been on to Elise and Marcus for weeks." She nodded, holding the folder. "James?" I stopped. "I'm sorry for everything. Don't waste your apologies on me." I pull out my phone and notice some new notifications from the tracking app. "Looks like your husband's having another working dinner tonight." She didn't answer. "Read the folder," I say. "Remember it, then destroy it. We'll be in touch." I leave her on the bench and check my phone. A text message from Elise pops up. "Staying late at work again, babe. See ya." I smile to myself, picturing the rumors and gossip this will stir up. Nancy is the perfect person to spread the word, and although she doesn't know it yet, she will do so out of fear. It's all coming together. Now it's time to set the plan in motion. 3 weeks later. The rumors have spread throughout the community, just like I had hoped. I'm sitting in my car, parked outside the Riverside Heights fundraising gala. This is going to be a very exciting evening. The community hall is beautifully lit up, and I see well-to-do guests entering it. Nancy did a good job spreading the word. "James!" Barbara Mitchell calls from across the parking lot. She scurries over, the pearls around her neck bouncing against her cocktail dress. "I was hoping to catch you tonight." "Barbara," I put on my best smile. "How's the tennis club?" "Oh, you know." She leans in a little closer. "A lot more interesting since Nancy brought up those suspicions about Elise and Marcus." "Suspicions?" I ask, feigning ignorance. "The late-night work sessions, the dinners." She looks around before continuing. "Sarah says she saw them at Le Papillon together last week, when Marcus's wife was out of town." I let a little hurt show in my expression. I don't listen to gossip. "No, not at all, sweetie." She touches my arm. "You are such a good man." I go into the hall, and I see Elise right away. She's wearing the red dress that Marcus bought her, although she thinks I believe she bought it at the mall with Nancy. "James." Nancy is there next to me. She's clutching my arm a little too firmly. "Can I have a word with you?" I walked with her to the side of the room and noticed people changing positions to listen in. "It's working," she whispers. "Marcus's wife was asking me about it at yoga this morning." "Good." I take a sip of scotch, looking at Elise. "We need to keep the financial angle at the country club going." "James?" Elise is walking towards us, holding a glass of champagne. "I thought you were working late tonight." "Wrapped up early." I hug her, kissing her on the cheek. She reeks of cheap aftershave. Wouldn't miss the Children's Hospital fundraiser. Nancy leaves, but not before giving Elise a long look. "What was that?" asks Elise, with a small frown. "What was what?" "Nancy's been behaving weirdly, and Barbara Mitchell bolted when I tried talking to her earlier." I shrugged. "Maybe she's mad that you were elected chair of the committee instead of her." The evening went on, and I observed everyone, noticing more and more how things were changing, how people stopped talking when Elise got close to them, how they turned away from her, the women who had been her closest friends. "You know Marcus Reynolds?" one woman says to another. "I guess his wife found some hotel receipts." "And that new girl at the office?" the other woman says. "The young blonde one?" When they see me, they quickly stop talking and walk away. Dave comes up to me, greeting me with a smile. "Keeping busy?" I look him in the eye. "How's Sarah?" "She's good. Real good." He fidgets awkwardly. "Hey, about those tax docs." "Later." I interrupt as Liam steps up, Nancy following him like a lost puppy. "Nice crowd," Liam says, his arm draped around Nancy's waist. "People love a circus," I say back, and he's already looking a little queasy. The music starts up and everyone begins to dance. Elise is dancing with Marcus at arm's length, but nobody really believes that anymore. I see Barbara Mitchell whispering to her friends about it. "James?" Nancy whispers to me through the music. "I think we need to take it down a notch. It's too much." I turned to her and whispered, "Getting cold feet?" "No, but—" "Then follow the plan." Elise is giggling at something Marcus is saying in her ear. "It's all going according to plan." The music began to play, and I took that as a sign to step away from the table and go to the bar. From there, I could see the whole room. "Your wife is a hell of a dancer," the bartender says, topping off my scotch. "She's a hell of a lot of things." Let him wonder what I mean by that. As the night goes on, I see the smile falter a little on Elise's face, as yet another old friend makes a lame excuse not to have lunch with her next week. She can feel it too, I realize. "Let's get you home, all right?" I say, putting her coat on. "Yeah," she replies. Did you feel like something was off tonight?" "Off?" "The people. They were strange." I lead her out of the library, past Barbara Mitchell and her friends who stop talking and watch us as we walk by. "It's probably no big deal," I say, lying. "Just some people worn out from their own fundraiser." As we drive home, I can see her reading her phone every now and then. She's probably texting Marcus or Dave, trying to figure out what happened tonight. I can't wait to see the look on her face when she finds out that Nancy has already told Marcus's wife everything, or when Dave's wife confronts him about the so-called business dinners he has been attending for the last couple of months. It won't take long before they all find out the truth. Just a few more weeks of whispers behind their backs, of wives finally listening to their gut instincts, of phone calls and text messages and emails, and then, boom! It will all blow up in their faces, just like I promised. I drive us home in silence. 3 weeks later, I look at myself in the rearview mirror of my car as I adjust my tie. I'll be attending Marcus's company gala this evening, but Elise left earlier today to help out with the preparations. I start the car and leave for the Riverside Heights Hotel, where Marcus's company has been hosting their annual gala for the last 8 years. The Riverside Heights Hotel looms in front of me, the lights burning brightly in the windows, making me feel even colder. I look at my watch. 8:15 p.m. Perfect. The ballroom inside is filled with people, the top brass for Marcus Reynolds' company party. It's a fitting place for tonight. Elise and I had our wedding reception there, 8 years ago. Mr. Anderson. The maitre d' nods at me, pointing to the coat check. Mrs. Anderson arrived about half an hour ago. Thanks. I look around and spot her right away. She's in green this time, hair tied up in a bun. Marcus is standing a few feet away, doing his best to look like security. But the cat's out of the bag now, thanks to Nancy. James! Dave walks up to me, smiling awkwardly. I didn't think you'd come. Of course I came. I grab a champagne flute from a waiter. This is a big night for us, isn't it? He looked at Elise. Oh yeah, the merger. And another announcement. I see a text from the process server letting me know he's in the lobby. James, seriously, Dave says. I think we need to talk. About a few things. Nothing to talk about, Dave. I grin back at him. I see things very clearly now. Nancy showed up at my side, looking pale. Is it happening? Tonight? Very soon. I glance over to see Liam staring at us from the other side of the room, looking puzzled. James! I hear Elise call out. She's approaching us with a glass of champagne. I didn't know you'd be here. Guess again, I say, and lift my drink to her. She looked a little surprised by my answer. You have no idea. Marcus stood up and raised his glass, tapping it gently. Excuse me, everyone. I maneuvered to the front of the crowd, Nancy following closely behind. Are you sure? She asks. Listen. Marcus began his speech about corporate excellence and strategic partnerships. Elise looked up at him and smiled, appearing proud of him. The crowd was listening intently to every word, not realizing the world-shattering news they were about to receive. And then I saw the process server coming in through the main doors, holding a legal envelope. And with that, it is my honor to announce, Marcus goes on. He made his way through the crowd, wearing a court officer badge on his chest, and people began to murmur as he passed. The merger of Reynolds Technologies with Elise Anderson? The waitress interrupts Marcus. Elise turned around, looking confused. Hello? Delivery. He offers you an envelope. She drops the champagne glass and it shatters on the floor. What? She asks meekly. Divorce papers, Mrs. Anderson, and a court order about your corporate espionage charges. A collective gasp could be heard from the audience, and Marcus stopped in the middle of a sentence. James, Elise asks, scanning the crowd for me. What did you do? What did I do? I shout. What did you do? I noticed that more security guards were approaching Marcus with legal papers. I saw his wife standing by the bar, glaring angrily at him. You don't understand, Elise begins, the envelope shaking in her grip. I understand everything. The cheating, the insider trading, everything. I move in. Page 4 is a good place to start. The SEC is going to want to know about those overseas accounts. Dave tried to back away from them, but found more of the same type of people standing behind him. Liam looked over at Nancy, but she didn't meet his gaze. You knew? Elise turns to Nancy. You helped him? She picked the right team, I say, stepping in front of her. Unlike you. The room is in utter chaos now. Phones are out and people are filming. Barbara Mitchell looks like she just won the lottery, already calling people. James, wait! Elise is crying now, her mascara streaking. We can work this out. I'm not interested in working this out. I start to walk towards the exit, then stop. Oh, and that green dress? Marcus's wife would like it returned to her. I guess he re-gifts. I hear her start to cry as I leave, and soon after, I hear the clicking sound of handcuffs being put on someone. I don't turn around to see who it is. It doesn't matter. The papers will do the work for me. As I step outside, I take a deep breath of the fresh night air. My phone starts to buzz in my pocket. It's reporters. Nancy must have sent the documents to them. I smile as I think about the headlines that will flood the internet by tomorrow morning. I loosen my tie and look up at the stars, letting the cool breeze wash over my face. I can still hear the commotion inside, but it's muffled now, like a distant storm. I know that my actions tonight will have consequences, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm doing the right thing. It's not just about revenge anymore. It's about justice. And maybe, just maybe, it's about finding a little bit of peace. I didn't get much sleep that night, and I woke up at dawn to watch the sunrise from my apartment balcony. I knew it would only be a matter of time before the shit hit the fan, and I wanted to be ready. When the first rays of sunlight hit the glass windows of Reynolds Technologies headquarters downtown, I knew it wouldn't be long now. 3 hours, 2 cups of coffee, and 1 fresh suit later, I was on my way to watch the show. The following day, I rode the elevator up to the top floor of Reynolds Technologies. I had a briefcase full of paperwork with me, ready to serve in the oncoming apocalypse. As I walked out onto the top floor, I noticed people whispering to each other and looking at me. Mr. Anderson. Sarah, the board's executive secretary, calls out to me from her desk. They're ready for you in the main conference room. Thanks, Sarah. I see that her desktop wallpaper is different now, not the photo of her, Elise, and Marcus from last year's Christmas party. The conference room doors are solid oak, imported from Italy during Marcus's recent renovation. James. It's Robert Chen, the lead counsel. He stands as I walk in. Thank you for the quick turnaround. The board members are all in their places at the giant table, but Marcus's seat at the head of it remains vacant. Because of everything, Robert continues, it seemed urgent. I put my briefcase down on the table. First, though, I say, I should note that my team has uploaded all of the pertinent documents to the SEC's Enforcement Division. I heard someone gasp. I think that's a little extreme, says Douglas Freeman, the CFO. We should be able to deal with this within the company, like you dealt with the merger negotiations? I pull a fat manila folder from my briefcase. Or the offshore accounts? What are you talking about? Douglas is turning red in the face. I pushed copies across the table. Page 3, Insider Trading. Page 12, Embezzling Company Profits. And page 20, I smile. Well, that's the fun one. I could see the expressions of the board members changing as they read the documents. Oh my God, Robert says under his breath as he reaches page 20. The shell corporations, all linked back to Marcus and his cronies, I say, still standing, and my wife. On the subject of Mrs. Anderson, Patricia Walsh from HR pipes up. She called in sick today. I'm sure she did. The elevator dings outside and I see Elise step off, still wearing her sunglasses indoors. If you'll excuse me, Patricia says, getting up, I need to speak with Mrs. Anderson. I watch through the glass as Patricia stops Elise, who looks defeated after a brief exchange. Patricia points at the elevator. Now, as I was saying, Robert brings me back to the room. The accusations, they're damning. Very damning. I pull out my laptop and hook it up to the room's screen. But there's something else. The next hour is a whirlwind of bank statements, texts, and security footage. More nails in the coffin for Marcus. From this moment, Robert says at last, Marcus Reynolds is hereby suspended pending review. We'll have to make a statement. Written. I hand him the next sheet. My publicists have been busy. As I walked out of the conference room, I noticed that the mood had shifted. Word had gotten out. I saw Nancy talking with a group of people. James, Robert stops me as I'm about to leave. The board thanks you for your silence. Do they? I say, as I tighten my tie. Well, things are just getting started. When I reach the top floor, I see Elise's office is empty already. A couple of people from HR are boxing up her things. My phone pings again, and I see a notification that Reynolds Technology stock is down 15 points after a controversial news article emerged about their CEO. Another ping, a text message from Dave's wife saying he went to work this morning and found his office was cleaned out. The dominoes continue to fall. As I'm leaving the building, I see the security desk is deactivating Marcus's access card. His name is being taken off the directory. Mr. Anderson, the security guard says, will Mrs. Anderson be coming to pick up her stuff today? No, I say, stepping into the revolving door. She's gone. I got a notification saying Richard Blackwood was looking forward to meeting me this afternoon to discuss the next step. I got into my car and drove away. As I left the parking lot, I saw Elise's car park. It was empty, and her name had been removed from the reserved sign. Her perfect life, just like her perfect marriage, was gone. It hadn't taken much longer than a week and a half, just as I had expected. Time to move on, I thought, and left. I spent the next couple of weeks traveling between companies, following the fallout in the newspapers and on television. The sun had already begun to set when I returned to Blackwood and Associates. I parked my car and took the elevator to the top floor. I sat down in Richard Blackwood's office with him, the two of us preparing for the final act of our little play. "We did it," Richard tells me, passing me the first folder. The evidence was pretty conclusive. It feels like so long ago, I think to myself, sitting in Dr. Hovgaard's office. "Hey, have you checked the news?" He taps the screen of his tablet, pulling up a business headline. "Reynolds Technologies is down again." "No surprise there," I reply. Marcus always had a knack for burning through money. The door to the office opened and Richard's assistant brought us coffee. The ceramic cups clinked against the saucers like little bells. "Your wife's lawyer called," she says, reaching over with the coffee tray. "For the third time." "Ex-wife," I respond. "I know." When we were alone again, he opened the settlement proposal. "She wants the house," he says, reading. "Naturally. And half your 401k. Show her the pictures from the Four Seasons in Boston," I told him. "The ones that show her there when she was supposed to be at the board meeting for the charity." "That's a good idea," he said, making a note of it. I hung up the phone and looked out the window of my office, down at the streets of Hartford. Elise was out there somewhere, having a similar conversation with her lawyer. "And the offshore accounts?" I ask, focusing back on the issue at hand. "Frozen until the SEC finishes their investigation." Richard looks through another set of papers, although some of the transfers to personal accounts in the Caymans were interesting. That's one way of putting it. He handed me a paper with some bank statements printed on it, showing the strange transfers. "You're listed on a few of these accounts," he says. "Joint accounts she set up without my consent." I point at the next page. "And these signatures were forged. The experts verified it." Richard places another document onto our stack. "And the fake board meeting notes." I got a text from Nancy. "Dave cleaned out his office last night, left the country this morning." "One down," I say to Richard, holding up the text for him to see. "They're dropping like flies," he says. It makes me think back to that day when I found the messages on Elise's phone. "The hearing is tomorrow," Richard says, collecting the papers into a presentation folder. "With all of this, it should be brief." "How brief?" "Less than an hour." He snaps the folder shut. "The judge has seen most of it in advance." I stood up, adjusting my tie in the reflection of the window. "One more thing," Richard says just as I'm about to open the door. "Her lawyers will probably say this is payback." "Good," I reply, turning toward him. "I don't give a fuck." The elevator descends slowly, taking me down to the ground floor. The trial will continue tomorrow, I know, and will likely conclude by the end of the day. My phone vibrates in my pocket. I look at it and see a missed call from Liam. I guess Nancy must have filed her testimony by now. He was probably calling to beg for forgiveness. It was too late for that, though. I could never forgive him for what he'd done. I climb into my car and drive home. On the way, I keep thinking about everything that had happened over the past few years. How I'd been lied to and deceived, manipulated, and cheated on. But now, finally, it was over. I felt a tremendous sense of relief. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. I spend the remainder of the day packing my belongings, preparing for the inevitable divorce. I don't eat dinner that night. The colors of the sunset were coming through the windows of my office. I had started packing some of my things. I had decided to stay. I knew I would eventually get used to it. At least now I knew the truth. My phone buzzed with a news notification. Marcus Reynolds, the CEO of Reynolds Technologies, admits to fraud and pleads guilty. I put my phone down and ignored it. I didn't care about that anymore. I didn't care about any of it. The doorbell rang and I went to open the door. It was Nancy. "I brought some wine," she says. "Figured you might need it after the week you've had." I move aside to let her in. She looks around, noticing the missing wedding photos that once adorned the walls. "The movers are coming in the morning," I say, bringing her to the kitchen. "Can't believe this is the end." I got out 2 glasses from a box labeled Kitchen Keep. The divorce, or the fallout, everything. She sits at the bar, observing as I pour the wine. "What about Dave?" Switzerland?" "Seems like his ski instructor gig isn't panning out." She takes the glass from my hand. "Sarah's lawyer is having a blast with that." The wine was good, probably better than I deserved. I saw Elise yesterday, Nancy eventually says. I took a sip from my drink. How is she? She said she was working at her sister's real estate company in Boston, and she was off. Off how? Nancy looked at me, her finger tracing a line in an invisible pattern on the kitchen counter. Less, yes, just less of her. I stood up and looked out the window. The sun was setting over the neighborhood. I wondered if Elise was watching the same sunset at her new place. Do you regret it? Nancy says. The exposure? The divorces? The lives we ruined? The truth we told? I look at her, thinking. The truth doesn't require any apologies. She nods. We drink the rest of the wine in silence, not bothering to turn on any lamps as the sun sets outside. I should get going, she says at last. Liam's settlement conference is tomorrow. Make sure your lawyer asks for the lake house. He paid for it with insider trading funds. She hesitated at the door, then looked back at me. James, she said, thanks for teaching me what true loyalty is. I walked around the house after she left, looking at all of my belongings, soon to be someone else's. Elise and I had a good life together, or so I thought. But the truth is, she was cheating on me for years, and I never knew. Looking back, there had been signs, but I ignored them. I was blind to it. I went upstairs and packed up the rest of my things. Tomorrow I'd be moving out, but tonight I would sleep here one last time. I looked around the bedroom, at the half-empty closet, and saw a single earring on the floor. It must have belonged to Elise. I picked it up and put it on the nightstand. My phone buzzed and I saw a text from Richard. The divorce had been finalized. I went to the window and looked at the house across the street. There was a family having dinner inside, and I could see them laughing together, perfectly happy. It made me wonder if I'd ever feel that happy again. But at least I knew I would never feel that betrayed again. I went downstairs and picked up the earring again, putting it in a box of my things to donate to Goodwill. Someone else would get more use out of it than I would. At least I had everything I needed to prove Elise had been cheating on me. It would have been nice to have it sooner.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. but that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully." Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look, "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using therein. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself. This could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.